Hello and welcome to a base theory video of Dragon Ball Super Future World. I'll be your guide, Nikhil, through this little info dump I prepared. This video is not for beginners who don't know how to play the game, but for players who have experienced a few games and are looking for information on how to get better. If you are a beginner looking to learn how to play the game, Bandai has released a video on how to play, link in the description. For the rest of you, let's jump in. In this section, I will define some key terms that I'll be using in the video, game states I've encountered during my grind to God, as well as some basic card gaming terms. I wouldn't recommend skipping past this section, even if you have a good idea of card games. Since the game is so new, there are some basic terms we have to define. The first game-specific term I want to explain is a concept I've run into that I call a stuck leader. Basically, a leader is stuck when they have to invest a resource into making an attack succeed. For example, if you awaken when your opponent has not, and they are not playing a crit leader, your opponent's leader becomes stuck because they have to invest a 5,000 combo in order to make the attack go through. Notably, Brawly makes all other leaders stuck when he awakens, but is effectively a 7 health leader because of it. The second game-specific term I want to explain is the Awaken Accelerator. It's very simple. Any card that can add life dex to your hand is an Awaken Accelerator, in that it accelerates the time when you can awaken, making it very powerful so you can force your opponents to be in a stuck leader state or to unstuck yourself, as well as giving you more cards, which allows for more decisions to be made when you are considering what to energy for the turn. With these two game-specific terms out of the way, we can talk about some basic card gaming concepts next. The first non-game-specific term I want to go over is the curve. So what is the curve? Basically, a curve is the geometric distribution of your cards in your deck on a chart. Generally speaking, the faster or more aggressive a deck is, the lower the curve, and the slower or more controlling a deck is, the higher the curve. The second basic concept I want to go over is that of card advantage, which is very simple. Whenever a card generates a resource, that is card advantage. In this game, there are many forms of card advantage, such as Awaken Accelerators, which give you the card while developing the accelerator, each card having a 1-cost card that draws a card, replacing the card while giving you a small bonus of having a 3/5,000 counter. Leader attacks also generate card advantage, with crit leaders trading the card that is given to the rest of the leaders on attack with advancing the board state. All awakened leaders generate a card, with Brawly's Awaken requiring you to put 1 energy in your drop in order to draw the card. The last term I want to go into is the concept of boss monsters, a Yu-Gi-Oh term that means the impactful win condition of your deck or the biggest threat in your deck list. For most colors, that card is a double attacker, but green gets a variety of bosses such as the Android pair, Gohan 7, and Brawly 8. In this section of the video, I will be going over helpful deck building tips that I have found while building decks. The first thing I want to discuss is super combos. Play 4. There's a reason why the devs limited us to 4, so we should play 4. All colors have a double attack battle card, and they are important to include because they can end the game a life early, making it so that your opponent has 1 less card to counter with at the end. All the double attack cards impact the board states and are also very good threats by themselves, and I've had many games end to them. I would play at least 2, with some colors having to run 4, due to lack of other boss battle cards. I have found playing that a high number of Awakening Accelerator cards are good, since it gives you more control over Awakening, as well as giving you access to more cards in the developing stages of the game, allowing you more freedom in selecting what you want to put in your energy each turn. Once you've awakened, though, the utility of these cards generally become combo, while also potentially allowing you to draw an extra card off your life cards on turns where you're trying to end the game, potentially allowing the game-winning combo to be drawn. Extra cards that increase the power of your cards I call combat tricks, which is a Magic the Gathering term. By having these cards in your deck, you can increase the likelihood of surviving turns by allowing you to hit different combo thresholds. Most extra cards generate a base 15,000 power value, with some generating more like Hope Slash or Gigant Meteor. When on offense, they also allow you to hit different power thresholds when you're either pushing damage or going for the game-ending attack. The downside of blockers. I'll be honest, most low-cost blockers in this game are inefficient, generally because they can be interacted with in a positive manner, but the better blockers are the ones that either generate immediate value inside Cooler 4 or Trunks 2, or synergize with your leader in some way, like Zamasu. In this section, we'll cover gameplay tips that I've encountered during my time playing this game. Because this game is a threshold-based game, there is some math involved when going for lethal attacks. And one way I found to simplify the math is to turn the big numbers into a small number to count. Basically how this works is that every 5k combo is one value of card, with 10k's being 2, 15k's being 3, and 20k's being 4. Now this might not matter for most players, they can just count, but I find it a little hard to count with big numbers, so just by turning the big number into a small number takes the mental load off you a little bit. Also note that sometimes it's not correct to pitch your hand for the instant win, depending on how many super combos you think your opponent could have. And in those scenarios, usually investing up to the 20k plus threshold on your opponent is enough to get one of those super combos out and another card. Life total thresholds are another way to generate an advantage. As you can ever cause your opponent's leader to be stuck, you can generate some advantage by making their leader attack irrelevant. Generally speaking, 6 life is out of range of awakening for most colors, since blue is the only one that gets the ability to get multiple life cards in their hand with a single card in a single turn, thanks to My Future. At a 5 life total, it forces your opponent to have 1 awakener card, and depending on what turn it is, can cause them to play off turn in order to get themselves unstuck to generate a little value with their leader. Green, notably, can get stuck on 5 life quite easily, as their awakener cards are a little clunky and not that powerful, causing some players not to play any entirely. Now, when you are awakened, the question then switches when to defend your life. I usually try to stay at 4 life, since it makes it hard to die to just one double attacker, but depending on the board state and cards in hand, you can go lower. Just recognize that 2 is the danger zone, 3 is a little scary, and 4 is generally safe. Now let's talk about how to play in the Crit Leader Mirror. In the Crit Leader Mirror, I've found the best success is to go second, and also not to quickly awaken your leader. Since crit leaders are 20k on both sides, if you try to turbo awaken your leader, you'll be caught in a cycle of discarding cards in order to prevent damage early on. And that generally is not a good exchange, because I've found that most crit leader mirrors are a race, and every card matters in those games, since for the opening stages of the turn, you can't rely on your life deck to give you extra cards, because the crit leader is just going to take them away. What to energize? My basic guidelines for what to energize are pretty simple. Generally speaking, I put extra cards first, since they require energy to play and aren't very useful in the early stages of the game. 0 counter cards come next. If you have redundant copies, it's pretty easy to energize a 0 counter card, and then 5,000 counter cards come after that. But usually, if you energize your energy or 0 counter cards, you usually don't have to energize a 5,000 counter card. But of course, since these are just basic guidelines, they are of course board and game state specific. Trading combo up. Sometimes you find yourself at a card advantage in a game, and one thing you can do is to use 5k combo cards to force your opponent to invest higher quality resources to prolong the game. Since it's a threshold based game, which means if you meet the threshold, your opponent has to beat your threshold in order to not take damage. For example, say you are attacking 20k into 20k, and you have a few extra cards in hand. You can use an extra 5k to force your opponent to either take the damage, which, if you're already at an advantage, you want the game to end a little sooner rather than later to prevent your opponent from coming back, which would require them to invest a 10k in order to prevent the damage. Now, generally speaking, when you're trying to trade your cards up, it's usually a 1-for-1 exchange. You exchange 1 card to try to get a card out of your opponent, but in some scenarios, it can be a multiple card exchange in order to get 1 or 2 cards from your opponent, depending on the resource disparity between the 2 players. How to use your energy marker. Ever since Hearthstone came out with the invention of the coin mechanic, certain games have given the second player a temporary resource in order to mitigate the tempo lost for going second. Generally, energy marker curves fall into one of these 4 basic curves depending on the matchup in early game board states. You have the 2-2-3, where you use the energy marker on the first turn in order to generate a tempo advantage that should carry on through the rest of the game. A 1-3-3, where you use the energy marker on the second turn to generate a small tempo advantage on the second turn, while still playing on curve for the third turn. A 1-2-4-4, where you use the energy marker on the third turn in order to have that tempo boost going, so you can play 2 impactful 4 drops in a row. Or the very rare 1-2-3-5-5, where you preserve the coin, or energy marker in this game, until your 4th turn to have a very highly impactful turn 4, turn 5, playing high cost cards in order to snowball the board state into a game win. As always, thanks for watching.